What about a double pull, double throw SSR?
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. I was going to do it with a. My method of doing this was to put two bifilers 90 degrees apart around a rotor that has two drive magnets 180 degrees apart. And if you want to add torque, you can add another two bifilers, making four in total, keeping them, the two pairs 90 degrees apart, but each pair 45 degrees apart around the same rotor with four magnets 90 degrees apart. But to start, two magnets 180 degrees apart and two bifilers 90 degrees apart around the rotor, you will have the same triggering effect as the double pole, double throw relay. And only you'll also have the locomotion added to it, which might be even better if you want to tie a three-phase alternator into that, which is my ultimate goal when I get my lab reestablished.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to do.
That's an interesting circuit, you know, the way you explained it like that.
Gerald, my plan is to put the two 180-degree magnets on the circumference of one rotor, and to put a three-phase magnet array on the same rotor, on the face of the rotor, and then put a stator above that face to pick up the three-phase.
That's an interesting configuration. I can't wait to see that.
one rotor, one stator.
Yeah.
The rotor will be DC pulse driven through the circumference with two magnets on the 180 degrees, and the AC output will be on the face of that same rotor. Now you'll have a gap to put the two magnets. This is why I started with two, but you can do it with four. You'll have, because there's four gaps in the circumference where there are no magnets on the face, you know, within a, I don't know how to say this, but on the three-phase system, you know, if you have 12 lines in 30 degrees apart, that would give you 360 degrees. So, and if you put a north-south on 30 degrees, on 0 degrees you put a north, on 30 degrees you put a south, then you skip a magnet. There's nothing on that degree there, on that 30 degree. And that's where I would put the drive magnets on the circumference for the two drive magnets 180 degrees apart. I would put it right there in that gap, so you don't have too much interference on your three-phase magnet array from your drive magnet on the DC pulse side.
That's an interesting configuration. That might actually, wow. That's something that has to be tested, but yeah, I do. I totally do. If that could be accomplished, you have a generator in a generator. Well, you have a motor in a generator, actually.
DC pulse generator, DC pulse AC generator.
Yep, that's exactly what that would be.
Using the flyback. So you essentially, I wouldn't recommend drawing off those two batteries, because I don't know if the flyback is going to be capable of doing anything more than keeping the power that's in the battery to begin with.
Yeah, that's part of the run system. So where would you?
Right. I don't think I would draw off the batteries, because you might just, you know, lessen your flyback power. I don't think that the flyback is, you know, I've never built this, so hey, you might find that the flyback is providing enough power to not only keep the battery charged, but to also draw some off of it. At which point you don't have to go the locomotive way for AC.
I know what you mean. You've given me a lot to think about here. That's great.
Right. I mean, that's what I was thinking. You know, if I draw off the battery, I might just stop the system. You know, if it works, the flyback is successfully dumping back and forth between the two batteries and keeping them charged.
Yeah.
But what if you start draining off that charge? Then what? Is it that stops the whole process? Possibly. If that's the case, then you don't draw off the batteries, you just draw off the inductors. You use the inductor to spin, and there is no draw, really. Because the inductors are just releasing EMF. When you're pulsing the inductors and capturing the flyback of those inductors, you're not capturing the flux that those inductors created when they were charged. You're capturing the zero flux, no flux. You're capturing the flyback.
Yeah.
Right. So you can harness the flux instead of not doing anything with it. You can go ahead and spin your wheel with it, and it has nothing to do with the flyback, though. So how is it going to stop the flyback from successfully keeping your battery charged and keeping it going?
That's, you know what? That's an interesting circuit. Now that I look at that, that might actually be what I need to complete.
I had this circuit posted for a while. People have seen it. Not a lot of comments. I'm guessing nobody's seeing it. They're just seeing it. They're not really seeing it.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I drew it down. It's sitting on my pad of notes, and I was going to get back to it this week because I know that I look at it and I can see how that would work.
I didn't even see the Bendini circuit the whole time I was replicating. I just was doing it. Just do it. See, figure it out later.
You have an understanding of Bendini without actually understanding what Bendini was trying to do. I always call him Bendini. Yeah. I don't know why I do that.
Bendini.
Yeah, it's Bendini.
John Bendini.
Yeah. That's
so Don Smith does the same thing, with the flyback. With his capacitors, he's using capacitors to switch. I think.
Who's that? I missed
Don Smith device.
Oh, Don Smith. Yeah. Really? He was capturing flyback?
I'm pretty sure he's using capacitors to switch them, not inductors. Because when a capacitor is fully charged, it acts like a short across the two terminals.
It does, and then when it drains.
It's effectively a switch once it's fully charged. It's effectively a closed circuit. It creates a closed circuit, a switch,
Huh.
So I'm thinking that's what he did with the flyback. That's how he was able to get away from transistors, because at the rate that he was switching was high frequency. There's no way you're going to keep those transistors going. They're going to blow. I'm sure he had that situation going on with transistors, and that's why I don't know if I never replicated the Don Smith, so I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's got transistors in it or not. I don't think so. I think it's all capacitors and coils. And
I got a big data dump of Don Smith's stuff, but I haven't had time to replicate it. I've been doing so many other things.
Right. So I'm figuring that he's just filling up capacitors at a voltage pressure ratio, which gives him a frequency once they charge at that voltage. They charge at a certain frequency based on the pressure of the voltage and the capacitance. So, and once they're fully charged and the capacitor dumps its charge, that effectively is your pulse, which can go into the coil at that point. That if he's got coils.
Yeah, that's the kind of principle I use on my bifilar. My bifilers are wound 180 degrees out of phase from each other, and that's how I capture my back EMF through, like I said, a diode and a capacitor. It fills up.
How do you do that?
What's that?
How do you do that? What do you mean 180 degrees? They're two wires together.
Well, my coils are. See, most people's understanding of bifilar is when you're, like, say, winding a solenoid, right? You're doing one coil and then you're doing another coil over top, right?
Or you can twist them together.
Or you could twist it together, right? Mine's completely different. Mine's a geometrical form, and I wind one sequence of numbers, and then I wind another sequence of numbers 180 degrees out of phase. In that geometrical form, and by pulsing it like that, you'd be surprised how much geometrical forms matter when it comes to electrical engineering. People have not.
I agree with that.
Yeah, they haven't done enough experimentation on them, I believe. We've always been using just solenoid coils and even just like transformers that I guess you could call them solenoids, but you know what? It's been so basic for the last 120 years. Nothing's changed. We need to look at open core coils and geometrical forms in order to, if you look at how energy flows, try and mimic that flow itself. That's what I was kind of trying to do in the beginning. And yeah, it's amazing how if you look at energy in a different way, like a ball of light, or sorry, maybe I should put it this way. Look at it as a series of line inductors that are formed into a geometrical shape. And every time you pulse, say like you pulse the coil, the very first sequence of that pulse is a north-south. And as it keeps going through the coil, it's another north-south and another north-south. And it follows that geometrical form into a spiral till the coil ends. But I also have another coil that's wrapped in between each line, like capacitor plates. That's the 180 degree out of phase secondary, my bifilar. I have to do a video.
Do you get the 180 degrees by going in reverse counterclockwise as opposed to clockwise, or are you getting it from the positioning in between the winding?
Both. I'm going clockwise and counterclockwise, and I'm getting it in between each line. The skin effect actually multiplies the overall power of the whole system. I like the skin effect. Most people, yeah, they try and cancel that out. The skin effect it creates spikes, and it's a problem in electrical engineering. Well, I want the skin effect. I use that.
It's not a problem if you got a battery or something you can throw it into.
True.
It's nothing but free energy in a sense.
I'm going to be doing a detailed videos on how to wind my coils. There's a whole bunch of them. I've done about 15 so far on 15 different separate coils, but I still have a lot more to do. Like I said, I've built over 175 of them. Not all of them worked. There was some crash and burn, a little bit of smoke happening in certain ones, but yeah, I got to do some more in depth on how to.
And the next step also is the alloy of metal that you use to wind, and maybe adding some bismuth silver into the mix a little bit.
I always thought about using gold as a coil.
Yeah.
That's the dream. Well, the golden coil, right? That's the golden halo that is above those ancient angelic deities, right? Or that opens up that portal. It's always some giant golden portal or a giant golden crown on the royalty. Who knows?
I want to use
technology that is.
I want to use silver wire on my primary, and I want to use gold on the secondary. I just can't afford
How do you make an enamel coated piece of gold? Who's going to do that?
Through
it may not be easy.
That's the material science that we're now developing through this electrolysis nano monoatomics that alchemy that I'm doing, as well as then adapting it into the 3D printing with the nano lattice structures, and the final topic of today's thing being the superconducting LK99, but just how it's material science advancing so much in these little nano freaking particles, and just organizing them in the right complex geometries gets you the superconductivity and I guess the universal energy hacks.
Well, when you think about sine waves that are coming from all over the place, they're usually in spiral, wave shape. So any conductor that you get lucky enough to actually match the same size of that wave, it should capture it.
I've got a small
dimensionally
coil.
speaking.
Yeah, I've got a small coil that geometrically that I built, and it levitates over a neodymium magnet, and it can hold 5 times its own weight. 12 volts, 1 amp.
You give it 12 volts, and it floats over the magnet.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
while I have you, sorry to
12
interrupt,
volts or
because
pulse?
we have 9 minutes left before I have to end this stream because APEC is starting. And Myke, it's been an absolute pleasure having
I'm
you
hopping on
on
APEC next
back
session.
on with Myke Faraday Research and discussing where Myke with Faraday has done a lot of the Don Smith experiments and built with it, applied into these DC pulsing and this negative flux that you're understanding and engineering in here. We'll play your last couple of videos that are a couple minutes each here, and then I sadly have to end this, but we will coordinate and make sure that we get a longer full stream with yourself, Gerald, myself, Jeremiah, and Faraday Research going.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that.
Gerald, this video here is a way of controlling a spark gap at your timing, at your desired timing pulse.
I just put it up on my, I grabbed all those links and I've got them open right now. I'm just waiting to watch them.
So I'm thinking if you pass a magnet over the core, right?
Thought I'd bring this up to you guys.
Oh, there you go.
This is a spark gap system that operates off of magnetic fields that are induced inside of a core, an iron core. When the North Pole hits the iron core, a magnetic field will be induced on the other end of the core of a north field. If your spark gap is close enough, it's possible the voltage will jump across. And if you have your winding of your coil that is wrapped around that core welded to your core, when the spark gap positive voltage from the battery jumps across to the core, it will energize the coil. And assuming that this north field here, when it does pass this north magnet on a rotating rotor, when it passes this core, that's assuming that it works and it induces some kind of a flux field that then attracts the positive voltage to jump across the spark gap. I don't know what you would call this. I'm calling it a magnetic flux spark gap. All right, just an idea. Maybe someone will try to do it. I haven't built this. I probably will try to do this.
So this is perfect stuff for Falcon Space, Mark Sokol, as well as Jeremiah, Technicians, Exotic
It's unbuilt, and it's open source.
Just APEC in general community. All of them have a lot of them have the resources.
Go buy a dash cam. Get a smart rear view mirror.
Good ad, sorry. But they actually have the resources to test those and make those, and have the vacuum tubes and controlled conditions and all of it.
That's right. APEC has what was his name? Josh, I think his name. He has a lab and doing all kinds of experiments with
many of them do. Many of them have all
T. Townsend Brown, the asymmetric capacitors.
Right. We need to do a full series on T. Townsend Brown as well.
Earth is an asymmetrical capacitor. If you could tap it, you got free energy, essentially.
That's what the ancients do, or did, to still do. Some of the ancient sites, or the ancient antiquitech architecture. The electroculture essentially is doing the same.
Maybe those pyramids are probably part of that. The whole operation.
Oh, they are, definitely.
Being asymmetric to the Earth, I guess.
Well, you can pull voltage out of the air if you ground it.